Hey guys, just want to do some quick class-wide feedback real quick. Okay, so I have a couple up here that I really like. Here's one that was very well done. The You can see there's a lot going on with these, right? But it's definitely got some. It's still pretty, but it's still very shape-based, right? I mean, even here, so there's shadows to try to make these feel more two-dimensional. All they are though is like shapes. So there's just a different shape of color here, right? So it's just kind of a different shape of color. There's not a, it's not a gradient, not a line. It's a different shape of color. Same thing over here. Um, Overall, too, these are really good, right? It's very easy to say this is a burger. Here's a hamburger. Here's a drink, watermelon, popsicle. Honestly, the only one I feel like needs some more clarity is this one. Okay. And to be honest, when I first looked at it, I was confused what it was. And maybe some of you weren't, but the idea is you want to make sure it's very clear to everyone what it is. So I think of all of them, this is the one I would probably play with more because the shape, isn't the shape isn't really getting me as the shape for a bag, right? The kind of curve here kind of makes me think of like a glass. So I actually thought for first it was like a drink of some kind or something, and so maybe some of you guys didn't have that problem. One of the things too is you see this white line here is really thin. You want to avoid stuff like that. I mean, even with this cup, you want to avoid having such small shapes because icons are always pretty small, right? So one of the things is you always want to zoom out when you're looking at these and say, what is it that I see? And the top of that cup is gone. The line going around the outside of that bag is gone. Okay. Even the little dots on the hamburger are kind of hard to see, so you got to be careful with that. People are not going to view icons this big. Okay. You gotta make sure they look okay, a little larger, but not so small. This one's another great example. It is a little bit complicated again for icons, right? Because if we zoom out, a lot of the detail disappears, you know? So even if these were like the stickers that you see or something, or emojis, there's a little too much detail going on here, like, in this necklace area. So you might want to, that's something that you'd want to play with, simplify. Same thing like the heart here, really cool. It needs to be a little bit more separated, so it's a little bit more obvious. Same thing with like this, and some of the little edges here, or the sun. You gotta make sure that things will look good far away. Also avoid things like tangents. So tangents where two things are a little bit uncomfortably close. In the design here, this spot right here, let's zoom in. You can see right here, these two spots are really close to the edge of her shawl, right? So you want to just move this over. You want to make sure that, this thing is probably, um, you know, over here. So there's just plenty of room right here. You want to make sure there's plenty of room right there. Okay? So that's something you want to do. Another thing is I really like, I think, she's done, I think it's a she who did this one. Um, I'm pretty sure it is. I'm sorry, guys. I don't have the names. I just grabbed them real quick. A lot of things I really like about some of this. Again, be careful with some of these small details so that they're still visible when they're large, right? Really thin lines get hard to see. One thing I would do, I like how, the different things and the different colors. I like that. I really love to see you make sure you repeat even a little bit more if you're able to. So, like for instance, I love the repetition that is going on. Like I love how these two colors are the same. I love how these two colors are the same. I love how um, like this color and this color is the same, and these are the same. What I would say though is like if it's dark blue, where could you put that? Well, I guess you have it right here, don't you? What I was gonna say is I like how a lot of these are repeated. I would probably get rid of this blue, and the reason is thinking about message, because this is a really light, warm blue, and this is supposed to be like broken hat, really sad, and that's a little bit too bright of a color I think for sad. I think the pink for the heart is okay, but it doesn't. It feels a little bit too, it doesn't feel like it's conveying that. Also, that kind of pink and blue kind of feel almost like baby colors, right? So I would probably play with this a little bit, um, and then right here with the sun, and I think it's supposed to be surprised. I don't know. That's kind of, I would be maybe thinking about this a little bit more, and play with the colors a little more for that one. Okay, but this one right here, really good warm color here. This orange, it's a great color. I think this is a nice subdued color. So some things to kind of think about with that one. Okay, so these two are really good ones that are simple, right? So if you're looking at those other two saying, wow, that's really complex, I don't know if I can do something like that, that's okay. You can see that these are just built out of really basic shapes. And they have a lot going for them, right? They're very clear, they're very obvious. Do make sure, guys, that you're building your own shapes. I'm not sure, but make sure there's sometimes there's tools that they have in the only tools that you really should be like, you guys need to make sure you're drawing most of the shapes. You don't have to make circles. Like a circle's okay, but just make sure. I don't know for sure if this is one of the pre-made shapes or not. I don't think it is, but just make sure. I think there might be like a pre-made shape you can get on in Illustrator for this. That doesn't count, right? Same. So you gotta make sure you're making your own shape. Same thing with stars. Make sure you're making your own stars. Well. You know, it's okay. You can use these, but only if there's more to them, right? Your icons need to have something to them that make them kind of their own thing. So I was gonna say that's maybe a better way to put it. So like right here, you know, what could you? I would add something to this. Add something to this. So kind of like how right here, she's added little stars around it. Okay. What can you do to add a little bit more to it, to give a little bit more detail? Maybe with lightning, maybe include a cloud somehow or something, right? So find a way to add a little bit more to it. If it's just one really simple shape, especially if it's just a pre-made kind of shape, that's not enough. You need to be doing something, okay? So a couple things about these, because again, these are really good. They're simple. A couple of things. One, you know, if you zoom out really far, the sun's okay, but it's not really coming across as well or as clearly. What would help would be to shrink down the circle a little ways. You have to play with that, but if you shrink it down a little bit, it really makes that outer area pop a little bit more, and that'll make it a little bit clearer, right? Still have that circle in the middle, and I'm not saying that this is like the right proportion, but like something like that, even you can see that it's starting already to look. I think it looks a little bit stronger, right? Another problem that both of these have is value. So that disappears. Can't see it on the white. Same thing, that really hard to see what it is. Really hard to see, really hard to see, really hard to see. So you want to make sure everything's really clear value-wise, because these are on white. That's just, you know, unless you're going to make them all designed to be on a specific different color, they're going to be on white. And, you know, you just need to make sure that you're planning for that. And most of the time icons are on white. They're either on like a black or a white, and so you want to design for that. Again, going on some of the stuff I talked about earlier, you know, you want to make sure that if you have space between things, you want to make sure it's big enough that it's really obvious to see. Same thing like right here. These are really close, and so it's going to disappear as you zoom out. Same thing with right here. Okay, so you got to make sure that you give that space. Okay, so guys, just a couple more things I want to add. Again, remember, look at these when they're far away. If you look at them when they're far away, some of the stuff I was just talking about becomes really apparent. Things disappear, they're hard to see. All that kind of stuff. I mean, like right here, I can't even tell that this cloud has anything under it. I can't see any of these smaller stars. So you got to play with that a little bit, okay? So guys, just make sure you're thinking about the overall shape. That's what makes these ones over here, even though they're really complicated, really good, is they have a nice overall shape. Okay, so really think about that nice overall shape of it. Even if it's stroke, even if you're just doing lines, the overall shape really needs to be good. And if you're using lines, make sure they're thick lines. That was one mistake I saw. A lot of people had really thin lines, thick lines, okay? For anything, and that includes the space between something, should be thick. Okay, so any kind of line, whether it's a line you draw or even like the white space that's like a line or shape, needs to be thick. So everything you're building with should be shapes, and that includes the lines. They should almost be shapes because they're thick enough to do that. Make sure too that you keep your edges really nice and clean. I mean, look at this. Even though there's a lot of complicated stuff going on here, the edges are very simple and nice. Same thing over here, really nice. I mean, that's why this bag, even though I said it's a little bit confusing what it is, I think, at first glance, that's why the edges are so nice and clean instead of like a bag which is kind of messy, It's because you want to make sure it's really clean. And these two over here have really nice clean edges. Work on that, or make sure that your shape and edges are really clean, easy, simple. And the last thing is just really think about your message and your audience. Okay, guys, your message is basically what's the purpose of it, right? I mean, for the most part, this one's pretty clear, really well done, right? If it's weather stuff like sunny, lightning is, I'm guessing it's saying that there's lightning. That's why I would maybe add a cloud or something, because there's always clouds when there's lightning, right? But right here, rain. This one, snow. If it was, it's pretty clear. Cloudy. I'm not sure where you'd see the moon as much, but here pretty clear. Could be a little stronger though, right? We're talking about colors and stuff. Could be a little stronger. These, except for this one, it's really clear what they are. And so that's like the purpose of these icons. It's okay if an icon is a symbol. It's what is it you're trying to say. These are pretty clear as well for the most part. The sun, star, work on those a little bit, but for the most part, they're pretty clear. So things to think about, okay? Make sure you have a really clear message and you know who your audience is. These look really fun, playful, not very serious, right? So if your audience is supposed to be like, this is for, a menu for an event, or catering you're doing for like, I don't know, mortician's, conference, that's probably the wrong kind of feel that you'd have at that. I don't know, that's a really weird example, but you know what I mean? Maybe at a prison, if that's like the symbols on the prison. No, don't do that. Okay, so be thinking about that. One more thing, just make sure that you're hitting these minimum things, 4 to 6 original icons, no symbols. So like I said, symbols are things like, text and stuff. Like if you just have to type something and it's made. Same thing though, if you just grab a tool and boop, made it, done, that's a symbol. You need to add, like that's kind of under that no symbols category. I don't like how they say no symbols personally, because the icons are a symbol, but it means there's things that are pre-made. Okay, like a letter is pre-made if you just type it out, or a circle, or the star tool, or any of that stuff is pre-made. All original work, right? So that kind of goes into that same idea. It can't just be that. Each icon communicates one message. Set of icons are consistently designed, so that means they go together. You can't have any text, no gradients, no drop shadows, pixels, effects of any kind. You can make shadows by having different shapes that are a different color, but none of that. And then just make sure that when you post it, somebody had a question about this, you need to have one page that's 9 by 6 inches, that's a PNG that has all the icons on it, and this video goes through all that. And then right here, you need to have 2 sets of each icon. One that's 60 by 60 pixels, so you'll export all of the icons individually. One will be a 60 by 60 inch, so these are going to be square shapes that the icons you're going to export them as, and the other one will be 400 by 400, because then I can see it small and see what it looks like, and I can also see it a little bit more detailed. Okay, hope this helps. Please email me a copy of your design so I can give you some individual feedback. Good luck, guys.